Here is the full translation of the text into English. Will Kyiv be captured in 2026? Russian armed forces enter Pokrovsk from 3 directions. Summary for January 31st. Before we proceed to the review of combat operations and the line of contact, what has changed, and where the Russian army is advancing, I would like to read out a series of news stories that prompted me to create this preview. Russia may capture Kyiv and Lviv in 2026, provided that the United States ceases to provide assistance to Ukraine, writes the publication Zahio. Without US support, Russia will begin its offensive in 2025, when Kyiv runs out of weapons. By 2026, Ukraine will lose its effective air defense system, allowing Russia to conduct prolonged, large-scale bombings. Ukrainian general forces will continue to fight bravely, but by the end of 2026, they will likely collapse, enabling Russia to capture Kyiv and then advance toward NATO borders, the publication writes. Next news, on January 28th, the head of the Foreign Intelligence Service and the Russian Historical Society, Sergei Narishkin, proposed involving scholars from Poland, Hungary and Slovakia to discuss, from a historical perspective, the issue of rights to Ukrainian lands. Reports TASS. Friends, please subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the latest developments from the front. Marco Rubio. Ukraine has been set back 100 years. As a result of the war, Ukraine's energy system has been destroyed. Someone will have to pay for the restoration of all this. And since many Ukrainians have left Ukraine and now live in other countries, they may never return. This is a future that is under threat, said the guest in an interview. The head of the U.S. Foreign Policy Department added that the previous U.S. administration once convinced people to believe that Ukraine could defeat Russia. However, as a result, the U.S. has been funding a protracted stalemate. Looking at all these incoming news stories, the cancellation of the grand freeze on military aid and all this, we can make an assumption. Again, as I've mentioned in previous videos, Trump wants to freeze the conflict, make a deal, and sign a ceasefire. All of this is because they have entire analytical centers that understand the situation. And here's the first news we read. By 2026, at what pace will the Russian Federation take Kyiv? Changes accumulate slowly, but happen instantly. The same applies to the line of contact, which we will now review. Everyone probably remembers how long it took the Russian army to capture Ugledar. If you pay attention, after the capture of Ugledar, the Russian Federation advanced significantly, and the pace of its advance is increasing month by month. Therefore, it is most advantageous for them to strike a deal now on terms they can still negotiate, because things will get much worse later. It's clear that any ceasefire is akin to death for the Zelensky regime, as Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin has stated that no agreements can be signed with Zelensky at this time. Let the presidential elections take place, and if the Ukrainian people re-elect him, then we can sign something with him. But we all understand perfectly well that Zelensky will not be re-elected. Moving to the southern Donetsk direction, where a cauldron continues to form. Strikes have already been carried out on these positions using Ukrainian drones. Accordingly, Russian troops are already here. Also, at the most advantageous point, the Ukrainian Armed Forces, UAF, tried to organize supplies along the N15 highway. In the footage, we see drones dropping incendiary mixtures. Here, in the footage, you can see an overturned car. Most likely, it was targeted by an anti-tank missile. They are also engaged in destroying a piece of equipment that was likely disabled by drone-dropped munitions and then finished off with incendiary bombs. Thus, Daknoy will likely be lost soon, as it is impossible to supply it, and the Russian army is striking. But I talked about this yesterday. Today, information came in that the Russian Federation is already advancing on Konstantinovka, on its outskirts. Several sources report that in Konstantinovka, there are defensive lines, fortifications, trenches, and active combat is underway. The Russian Federation has reportedly not yet entered Konstantinovka. Also, from Konstantinovka, footage has arrived. Here, a pontoon crossing was organized for supplies, perhaps for something else. Perhaps in the forest plantations, the UAF is trying to hold some positions or supply via this road, fearing that it is controlled and monitored by drones. Here is the pontoon crossing. It will soon be spectacularly destroyed, here in the footage. Again, as you can see, If such pontoon crossings are detected, we can assume that this area is fully controlled by drones. UAF positions are identified and targeted. Here, footage of counter-battery operations near Andreevka has arrived. There are self-propelled artillery positions and artillery positions that the UAF has set up far back to stop our advance with armored groups. Such positions are also detected. They are most often detected during an offensive because artillery reveals itself. Camouflage is still a thing. There are ready-made dugouts covered with camouflage nets that are almost invisible. But now, by some miracle, perhaps during resupply, when a vehicle arrived with ammunition, it was spotted and subsequently targeted by artillery. As I mentioned yesterday, the advance in Andreevka continues. Fierce fighting is underway here. This large stronghold has come under the control of the Russian Federation. Relying on it, they can now move further into urban areas. Somehow, Russian forces managed to approach Andreevka without significant losses and are now fighting for these two settlements. Moving to the Pokrovsk direction, where the Russian army is advancing very quickly. From Novaya Elizavetovka, which Russian forces recently captured, they are now moving further into smaller settlements. The battle for the settlement of Udachnoye continues here. The UAF reports that they have managed to push back the forward assault positions of the Russian Federation. The Russian Federation claims that part of this built-up area is still under its control. Heavy fighting is ongoing here, so some positions may change hands multiple times during the day. Moving to Toretsk, most likely there are some fortifications and UAF units here. Currently, the Russian Federation is trying to break through to Sherbinivka and close the cauldron that has formed here. If we zoom in on the map here, we can see some industrial center and a series of trenches. Therefore, the Russian Federation is acting quite competently here. It is closing a mini cauldron that has formed in Toretsk. Also, on the outskirts of Toretsk, FABs, high explosive bombs, are being used. In the footage, we see FABs at work, perhaps targeting armored groups that the UAF used to film videos. Here, they may have gathered to attempt another raid, or perhaps this is some UAF deployment point. Chasiv Yar. Fierce fighting is underway. Russian assault units are breaking through to workshop number 2. The footage shows an entire battle, with Russian assault troops engaging and fighting against Ukrainian forces. It is also shown with sound, as if coordinating with a drone. Here is the guy storming the trenches and fortifications controlled by the UAF. Full footage is available on my Telegram channel, just to show the heavy work Russian assault troops have to perform here. Moving to Kupiansk. Information has come in. There is now official confirmation that the entire area near Dvureknoye is also controlled by Russian units. Now we can make a clear statement that a bridgehead has been formed here. How was this detected? The UAF launched strikes, and drone footage from this area was presented. Artillery was also used here. Therefore, Russian units have expanded their control in this area. From this point, footage has arrived. A UAF sabotage group or a group that was supposed to organize defense here either went on rotation or I don't know what they were doing. They were detected by drones, after which the group either hit a pre-laid mine or was destroyed by a precision artillery strike. Moving to the Kursk direction. What's interesting? There is a series of footage showing strikes on UAF positions. Here, in these 2 points, we see destroyed armored vehicles, UAF material, and here we see how the SAU Akatsiya was detected. As you can see, it was well camouflaged, and now it will be destroyed using a drone, already in the Sumy region. SAU Akatsiya, other positions. As you can see, a drone is flying, detecting these SAUs. These SAUs are intended to stop an advance that could move towards Sverdlov. Here, a piece of equipment has been destroyed. It was supposed to provide cover for Sverdlov. Now it can't. All of this is done before an offensive. Also, if we look here, we have Guyevo. There is a supply route here, which the UAF tried to use for resupply with BTRs. Such a BTR was detected and destroyed by a drone. In the footage, we see a burning BTR. We move here to the Chernihiv region. As you can see, there are several points marked in red. There is extensive footage. Artillery strikes were carried out using drones on the border with the Russian Federation. The UAF tried to concentrate small units here, perhaps for sabotage raids or possibly for an offensive. Such positions were detected. As you can see, it's snowing, but the drone captures everything. It also coordinated artillery fire here, targeting UAF positions. Extensive footage on the border with the Russian Federation. Strikes were carried out on UAF units. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones. Thank you for your support, and see you tomorrow.